Hey everyone, welcome to Meetup with MeLa. I'm here today with a special guest, a good a longtime friend and fellow coworker in past years, and Valerie Tridenti is here with us today, and she's actually going to join us. Meetup with MeLa, the podcast is going to have a special relationship series in the month of February, and you may see Val pop up a few times to be my special co-host. So definitely welcome Val to the
I'm so
podcast.
excited. Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
me. I'm really
much.
excited to be here.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for being here as well. We feel like we have a really good podcast for you today. And again, the Meetup for MeLa podcast is definitely conversations that affect us all. And this is a conversation that we feel like will affect everyone because
Yeah.
it's just based on relationships.
Mhm.
So we definitely want to have some of these important conversations. We think of February as being the month of love with Valentine's Day. So we're really excited about this. So definitely. So we're going to start out. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that we have on the bottom of our page is how you can follow Meetup with MeLa on Instagram, Facebook, and the YouTube page, which contains all the episodes for Meetup with MeLa. And also Valerie's information also goes by Val, her Instagram and Facebook information as well. So feel free to follow her. So yes, thank you so much. So Val, if you just want to tell us a little bit about you before we start our episode today.
So I am a mom of two. I have two kids, a boy and a girl, 12 and 14.
Okay.
I currently work as a coordinator at a hospital, and I have my own side business as a credit consultant. And that's about it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So basically, just to give everyone some insight, Val and I sat down and we developed sort of a series that we thought would be helpful and based on relationships, and it's called Love Thyself, the 10 Commandments for before getting into a relationship. So basically, we're going to just go through some different topics, have some conversations, throw in some of our personal experiences in that. And basically, we determined at the root of all relationships, you definitely have to love yourself first in order to have healthy relationships. And the thing about it is, this isn't just like romantic relationships, but every relationship. So familial relationships, friendships, good relationships at work. So basically, we figured this is a great starter to our relationship series. Like I said, that will be taking place on the Meetup with MeLa podcast in the month of February. So, do you want to elaborate on that, Val?
Yes, so this is really important because I feel like this is a topic, these topics that we're going to talk about, it's something that everybody can relate to. And, basically, we don't get to talk about this so much. And we're kind of, sometimes we stay stuck in certain situations, or, we are not really learning from previous experiences. And we kind of, make the same cycle, the same, errors and cycles to go forward. So this kind of like is a time for us to, get to make changes in our lives really by starting to love ourselves and then moving, forward with that. So I
Yes.
think everybody can kind of relate to a lot that at least some things that we're going to be talking about today. Everyone.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So basically, we're saying this is basically some things that you need to do before you get into a relationship.
Yes.
And maybe if you're in a relationship that's not going so well, maybe take a step back and reassess and maybe follow these steps. And this may actually help you really reflect and maybe develop certain things in terms of levels of improvement for yourself that maybe can help you be healthier in the relationships you're in. But again, starting with yourself. So our first commandment, if you will, is number one, know your own worth. So do you want to start with this, Val?
Yes. So you really, before you get emotionally involved with somebody else, it's really good to know how important you are as a person, because you don't want to get caught up in a situation where you're not being valued. Because
Mhm.
if you don't value yourself, if you don't treat yourself well, if you don't, put high standards up for your life, then when you get into a relationship, you will settle for
Yes.
things that are not, in alignment and not healthy for you. So it really starts before anything is you really have to heal old traumas, love yourself, know how special you are. And every day you have to, take that time to really evaluate yourself and just know, I'm important, I'm special, and know that you're not going to accept anything less, any disrespect. So you have to respect yourself first.
Mhm.
This way, when you go out there, you won't accept any less from someone else.
Exactly. And I also feel like it basically the saying of, you teach people how to treat you is huge. If people see that you don't care about yourself, you're letting people use and abuse you. Unfortunately, a lot of people, especially people that prey on others and don't have your best interests at heart, will take that, see that, and unfortunately continue to take advantage of you in that way. So it's huge. Like just knowing your own worth, that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect as people because none of us are going to be perfect. Knowing our strengths, knowing our weaknesses, but knowing that we certainly deserve people in our lives that are there to support us, care about us, and really are rooting for us. I mean, if you have people around you that are toxic, definitely this is a good time to sort of clean that out and really know what you're willing to even tolerate. But again, I think this is a huge start because when someone sees that you have value, you have self-respect, basically that's going to show within you, but you're also going to be projecting that to others too. So again, I think it's huge. I think that's why we started with this one, because it is such a huge thing.
Yes. And, even just like things that you might not even realize, like I know with me a long time ago, if somebody threw me a compliment, I would be like, oh, but, if they say, let's an example, oh, I like your hair. Oh, but I got to cut like I'm always making excuses, not
Yes.
accepting compliments. And you don't realize
Yes.
that sometimes when you're doing that, like you might not be feeling confident about yourself and not even really realize it until little things like that happen when somebody's giving you a compliment
Exactly.
or something and you can't just accept it and be like, thank you. So it's really, you really have to get into a place because also that energy is reflective. So if you're feeling like, not confident about yourself in certain areas, somebody who comes around is going to pick up that vibe. And
Hmm.
already, you're just putting yourself down to them like a little bit lower, or you need to keep,
Exactly.
you know, so that it's just, and sometimes it's just really little things like that where you're like, wait a minute, maybe because you might be thinking, oh no, I know I'm worthy. You might be thinking, no, I know that I'm this and that,
Exactly.
but
Yes.
these little things come in where you don't realize, wait a minute, there are these insecurities that I have to work on, that you might pick up on little things like that.
No, I agree. And I think especially sometimes like it's I think you think sometimes you're saying those kind of things and because you don't want to come across as overly confident or arrogant
Right.
and I think it's like a way to humble yourself. But it's okay to just say thank you. Like your hair looks great today. Thank you. Rather than, I know sometimes too it's like, oh, I love your jewelry. It's like, oh my gosh, I got this at the dollar store. It's like just say thank
That's
you.
me. I'm
And
like, oh,
yeah, yeah,
that's $5,
and it's
whatever.
okay. I mean, sometimes I think we just do that like, oh my gosh, get this for yourself. This is amazing. But I think sometimes it's also like, don't be your own worst enemy in terms of you're chopping yourself down, which again allows other people to potentially chop you down, or you're actually conveying and portraying yourself in a way that's lesser than or that you're not worthy of. So again, it's like, realizing that, it's okay to accept a compliment. Thank you is fine, so I do think like again, I think as men and women, it's something we have to be comfortable with. And again, know your own worth because when you know your own worth, you are setting the precedent for everyone around you about how you're going to be treated, what you're going to be tolerate, what you'll will be willing to tolerate, and hopefully people will reciprocate in that way as well. So I think that's definitely an important one. So, any last thoughts on that, Val, before I move to the second?
No, no last thoughts, but this one is a biggie, you know? So if anything, there's so much information that you're gonna get today, but if anything, like really just write that down on your paper right now, like know your worth, because this is something
Yeah.
that it sets the precedent for everything else that we're going to talk about in and really anything in your life too, not even relationships, right? So even, what your goals and stuff like that, you have to
Mhm.
know that, you have to have confidence, you have to know what you're worth, and you have to know that you can achieve anything. So this so important. Put a star next to it. Absolutely.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
I also say this is the one, like, do not pass go. Do
No.
not move on
Yes.
until do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Do not do anything. This is the one that until you really believe it and you are actually showing this in your daily life, whether sometimes I know people like even write down like affirmations to themselves, different things, whether you put it even on your phone as like your background setting. The whole thing of it is the more positivity that you can create in your own life and know your own worth, it will be huge. It will definitely be huge.
Yes,
So
and
once you,
that's right.
yeah.
Affirmations. I do affirmations every day,
Oh, do you?
and I think kind of jotting down like what am I insecure about? Like look at yourself in the mirror, and it doesn't always have to be physical. It could be other things, and be honest with yourself. It's really
Yes,
about being honest with yourself first, or else you won't be able to tackle this. And then
exactly.
you do your affirmations from there. And every morning, that's my ritual. I go through my affirmations. It doesn't take long, but it really does get into your subconscious mind
Mhm.
after saying, the positive things over and over again, and it really does help. So that's a really good tip that you gave about the
Yeah, no,
affirmation.
thank you. Thank you. So the second one that we have is leave the baggage behind. And when I
Yes.
say behind, like behind, it's like way back.
Yeah.
I think this is one that is just huge in terms of you cannot move forward if you are not willing to leave some things behind you.
Right.
So, do you want to elaborate on that, Val?
Yes. So a lot of times if we're going to, this goes for any kind of relationship, but if we go for like a partner, like a love relationship, say you had a really messy breakup, the last thing you want to do is to jump into something right away because you have not healed, you have not reflected, and you have not gotten over that past person, and nobody wants to sit there, no new person wants to sit there to listen to what you had to go through and how terrible this person was. You need to be in a fresh state of mind because you need to give this other person, a fresh start as well, and like a clean slate where you're not, feeling in kind of like reject like regretting and feeling bitter. You
Yes.
really need to get that because that's a bad look, and it doesn't set up a good starting point, and
Nope.
it's never going to resolve your issues. So you really have to take that time to kind of process what happened, go through, so that when you do start to date, you are on a fresh, you take your lessons with you, but you leave the negatives behind, definitely.
Exactly. And I think that basically tackles on, and I know we've had this conversation, Val. It's not to say we're learning from every interaction, every relationship that we've had. And that's okay that that is over. Take what you can, the positives from it, determine, what was good about that? What did I learn from that? But also, if you're still talking about it and feel like you said, that immense need to convey that into a new relationship and it seems like it's unresolved, the worst thing, and I've been there, I've been there, and it's so uncomfortable when someone is telling you again about an ex, it could even be 5 years ago, it could be 10 years ago, but there's obviously something there that this person has not let go. And unfortunately, that is going to be an issue in your current, if you try to start something. So they're saying how negative that person was, how bad it was, how miserable they were, everything that person did to them. But then you have to start thinking too, okay, well, wait a minute. We all have accountability. It takes two people in a relationship. So for me to want to listen to that you had this horrible situation, but yet you continue to have 5 kids with this person or
Yeah.
1 kid, or you stayed in for 10 years. It's like, I'm sorry, but it ends up being like all bets are off at that point. Like, you're telling me something about yourself, which again, it's like, okay, I don't, it's hard. Sometimes I'm just not, we're not judging you for your past. Things happen. We've all been in situations and we learn
Right.
from those. But if it
Yes.
seems like, again, I always compare it as almost like, sometimes it almost feels like you're sitting there in like an evening gown and someone drops a whole bunch of garbage on you. And you'd be like, excuse me, what are you doing? And
That's the perfect
unfortunately,
analogy.
exactly, we tolerate this too often. We're not going
Right.
to change that person. We're not going to start a relationship thinking you're going to pick that all that junk up and then carry it with them is not something you should be starting any relationship trying to bear. I think the other example of this too is, and I have to say, is a big pet peeve of mine, people that are going into dating, and especially I think you need to be very honest about this if you're one of those people, if you're separated. If you
Yes.
are separated,
Right.
it's because, and you have not had a divorce, that's not, you have unresolved things going on.
Yes.
I don't care which way you cut it.
Right.
Come back. Please come back. When that's all resolved, it's packaged up, it's over. But I really don't feel comfortable a lot of times when I feel like I'm separated. Well, that means that you still have something going on, right?
Right.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Val?
I agree because it's like, okay, separating is it's not ended, so there's still a possibility. So what's the
Yeah.
likelihood that I'm going to open up to you and I'm going to start to take you seriously? If am I a rebound? Am I, is are you just trying to see if you could, get something better than the situation and then go back to, you really you're obviously your foot is like one foot's in there and one foot's out here. You need to have both
Exactly.
feet going forward. So you have to resolve those issues. And honestly, to be honest, I wouldn't want to even want to deal with someone like that because that also shows me that they're not taking the time to end things that they feel like they have to get into something right away because they don't it could mean, do you not want to be alone for a little while? Do you not want to
Mm,
feel that uncomfortable feeling? So how do you handle situations that are like life situations that can happen in the future with me? You know what I mean?
exactly.
So I
Exactly.
honestly like it's a really bad look to do that, and you really have to take that time. No one separated means that you're still somewhere else and you're not here. And so I want someone
Exactly.
who's here, not there and here.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think sometimes too, it's also about, it's not even just what someone's telling you. Pay attention to, like, they might say, I don't have any baggage, everything's neat and clean. I've heard that a million times.
Right.
Until you start seeing certain things, you see certain patterns, you see that, sorry, I have to cancel because I just had a huge fight with my ex, and now they're dropping the kids off, or the dog, they're they're in court over an animal or something. I'm a bet that they can't even decide custody on. I'm
Right.
not saying that people aren't going to have real life problems, but
Right.
really be in a 99.9% place that that kind of stuff should not be coming up, especially as you're trying to put your time and attention into dating someone and showing that you're actually present for that person. Because I think, again, it's like everyone in a relationship wants to feel wanted. They want to feel like they're the only ones and that they're very special in that way. And I think a lot of times people are willing to take that, but they're not willing to give that. And I think that's a big no no in the sense that you have to be ready to receive that. Again, if you have baggage, sometimes you're not able to receive that, and you're certainly not able to give that. So I would say that's why we pick number two, leave the baggage behind for
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. I agree with that. And I think like from a personal, I just made me think really quick. Somebody that I have dated in the past was, he didn't leave his baggage behind apparently because he had such negative feelings about the women in general.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it started to come out where, well, like a certain thing would come up and it would be like, well, my ex did this and my ex did that. And that's how, women are when as soon as they get into relationships and they do like starting to generalize all women. So I think that's
exactly.
like, okay, he definitely hasn't healed. Whatever happened to him in the past, he definitely hasn't healed. And now I'm going to get the brunt. Now I'm going to get, like, I'm going to suffer. No one wants to suffer for what someone else did,
Yes,
in the past. Like, you can't take it out on somebody else if there's a disagreement or something that they're
yes,
saying so innocently. And now you're, making them, accountable for what someone else did.
exactly. And I also think that's a good point, Val, because I think it goes to show baggage is both physical and mental. So,
Yeah.
like, mentally, if you're bringing around thoughts and negative ideas, first off, you have no business to be dating if you feel like the people you're potentially coming into contact with or want to give a chance to are all bad people. It's like, okay, then why are you here?
Right.
Go.
Yes.
And heal, and like, and that we'll certainly talk about that. But then the other side of it is, I also don't say leave the baggage behind. When I mean you have children, don't leave your kids behind. That's not what we're saying.
No,
It's
never.
the fact that it's like when we're saying baggage, meaning unresolved. So
Yes.
unresolved issues. If you're having, again, if you're in the middle of a custody battle, again, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the baggage is necessarily your fault, but resolve what you need to. That's
Yes.
what it is. Baggage is unresolved goods, whether mental, physical, if they take a physical presence or not. But it's like baggage is basically, I'm bringing my stuff to your place. It's like being an unwanted guest. Someone
Right.
says they're going to stay for one night, they stay for 3 months, and they like literally like put stuff all over your
Exactly.
place, made it a mess, and it's like it's time for you to go. Like, I don't
Right.
want this. I thought we were coming into this fresh. We had great ideas, we had great chemistry, and unfortunately you're coming into this, with all types of stuff, bringing
Right.
people into it, issues into it, things you never even thought of. So again, leave the baggage behind.
Yes. Perfect.
That brings us to our next one, reflect and resolve.
This is
So,
like how you
yes.
leave the baggage behind.
Yeah. So I would say, yeah, reflect and resolve. Again, you're learning something from previous relationships. And some of that might even be not even a previous relationship. It might be people's relationships around you. Like, I see this all the time where I see relationships that I just think, oh my God, that's such a beautiful relationship. I hope one day that I get an opportunity to have something very similar to that. And also just like reflecting on, what do I want? And what do I feel like is something that I don't? What did I learn in previous relationships? And what are some things that I potentially need to do to resolve some issues that might be coming up, relationship after relationship? Again, it could be family relationships, it could be friendships, things that I'm allowing that I find myself in the same place over and over again. And I think sometimes to resolve things, you might be able to do that on your own with some real reflection and meditation and mindfulness and just taking the time. Or you might actually need to get someone involved, like a mental health counselor, or talk to friends or people that can be completely honest with you. Because I do feel like this is something that if you don't resolve it, it will play over and over and over again. And I
Until
know
you
for
do.
myself that this has been the situation that I think sometimes too, like as women, especially, it's like, oh no, we don't want to judge people too harshly. We don't want to feel like we're coming across as like conceited or stuck up or something to that extent. So you're allowing some things, but then it's like, but why am I allowing these things? And again, it goes back to knowing your worth, because it's like, again, it's not, it's okay to care about someone. It's okay to admire someone, but it doesn't mean you have to tolerate everything and anything that
Absolutely.
they would throw your way. So, I mean, what are your thoughts, Val?
I agree with you. I think this is so important, and I think you should be reflecting daily on certain
Yes.
situations. I think it's really important so you don't get so caught up and then you're kind of in this kind of confused, like, how did I get here? Like, how did this situation get to this point? So I
Yes.
think it is so important to daily kind of just, like you said, reflect on what you want. I personally, for me, I journal a lot, for
That's a
myself.
good
Like, I
thing
just get a
too.
notebook and I write my thoughts down, and it doesn't have to be fancy, but, like you said about reflecting on, what would I want? Like, if you see something, like, I have my best friend, she has a great relationship, with her husband, and it's kind of relatable because he has a child, with somebody else. So, and it's a great, relationship. So I'm thinking every time I look at them and I see certain things that, I just be like, yeah, that's what I want, and I'll write it down because it's good to know. And then to kind of judge your current situation, like, well, what's my current situation like? And how can I resolve that? And sometimes,
Yes,
like you said, with people, you admire them. Sometimes you need to love people from a distance because you always have to protect yourself,
it's
right? That
true.
comes from self-worth. Is one thing about self-worth is not letting anybody, like, finding peace within yourself and not letting anybody really just disrupt that peace. So protecting your peace,
Exactly.
protecting your energy. So sometimes I always say love from a distance. I have, you have people that are your closest people, who you can trust, and you have people where you kind of see how they are with others, and you
Hmm.
say, and you use that as, okay, like, I'm not, so you can kind of like still care about them, still love them, but not have them so close to you, in your current life.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's just that, you really, it all comes down to protecting your own peace, knowing what you want, constantly reflecting on that, going back at, like I said, I write stuff, going back and reviewing it when I have like off moments, and
Yep.
I'm thinking, and I'm like, oh, right, like, you have to always kind of work on it.
Exactly. Exactly. And
It's
I think
called
the
like
other,
mental work, like, it's almost like, people who exercise, if you want to get a certain goal from exercise, and you can't just do it one day and then, you know not
so
not
true.
work out again from, like, for 3 more weeks, and you're like, why haven't I gotten here yet?
Yep.
This is consistency. So reflecting constantly, it will get you there. You just have to be, I say, mental work every day. You should be putting it in.
Exactly. And I think the other thing too is I think the reality is not all of us have had, maybe the ideal relationships in the household growing up that we can look to and say, "Oh my God, that was amazing." And
Right.
so I think sometimes it's also reflecting on the good, the bad, the ugly and realizing, certain things may have been normalized for me, certain things were actually not healthy for me, certain things it could have been you treated the way you were treated as a child. It could be by
Right.
parents, it could be by family members, and realizing like, where does this come from? Where has this potentially started? Where did I start thinking it was okay to be treated any which way? And also, just in terms of, being taken advantage of or taken for granted, or someone that, are you okay with being put down? Are you okay with feeling like things don't have to be reciprocal in a relationship? You can be the most caring person, but at the same time, um, you should expect to receive something in return. I think a lot of people think like, oh, well, I'm not that type. Like I give, openly. Yes, yes, to a certain extent you should. But at the same time, nobody has indefinite resources, right? I mean, you should expect certain things. So again, reflecting on maybe some things, it could be way back when where it's like, I saw, parents in the home that were fighting, or I've been, in situations where who knows, people tolerated infidelities and that was fine, or so some of this can be from different standpoints of what you've been familiar with. Some of these could be some things could even be cultural, some things could be what's been the culture that's been allowed in your family or families
Yeah.
that you've seen. So I think it's also just realizing too, maybe even just getting some real role models too, of like, what does it look like? And that could even be on TV. Granted, I also caution people, not every time what you're seeing is necessarily what's happening behind closed doors, but thinking about, what would you want things to look like, reflect on that. And if you have something, really trying to resolve that. I think that's huge.
Yes. And um I'm glad that you said that. And just to touch on it, you know when kind of like with leaving the baggage behind, and this, I believe personally that everything happens for a reason. So we can learn really like the tough times that we have or the tough experiences that we've had or we saw, maybe in childhood, maybe like you were saying, in households or whatever, or things that we've personally dealt with in our own lives, really take those moments and those can be like your golden ticket, honestly, if you look at it, because that's where you're like, okay, that's not acceptable. That's not something that I want in my life. That's something that I would have to put a stop to. And those are all lessons for you to learn. And I think that if you don't learn them, you keep getting these experiences until you do learn them. But
Yes.
learning those lessons and really reflecting on, okay, this was a bad situation. How can I make it positive for my life going forward instead of,
Hmm.
taking me down and being, make it purposeful. Anything that was bad in your life, make it a purposeful situation where you can learn and say to yourself, okay, like, now going forward, what am I going to now the next time I'm in a relationship or the next time I'm in a situation like this, or do I avoid having a relationship that like maybe my mom had, or my father had, how
Yes.
can I avoid that? What can I do? Like, what did I see them doing? What can I do different? And going forward, how can I approach a relationship differently? Or what would I do if somebody came to me, with the same signs that I dealt with the last time? How would I get myself out of that situation? So definitely using your negatives, in the past to make it a positive by really like the reflecting and resolving and having a game plan for the future.
Exactly. And I think sometimes too, it's like sometimes, like, I think, especially as kids, and we have our role models are typically like our mom and our dad. I think sometimes too, it could even be people that you have situations that have really not been resolved. Like, so say, you might have lost a parent at an early age, or say if it was a situation where, your parents divorced or it was pretty traumatic. It's also like trying to make sure that you understand certain things. And again, you're not looking for things in other people because you have unresolved issues. Because
Right.
again, that will continue to play out until, you're trying to resolve something potentially that's happened in the past. And unfortunately, you're trying to do this in numerous ways, and you could be seeking people out that show some of those same signs, whether it could be that they could be a narcissist, they could have abusive tendencies, they could be just not healthy. They could be an alcoholic. They could be drug addicted, like in a way that you're trying to think, okay, if I can help this person, then it sort of erases everything. And unfortunately, that can bring you down a really bad path. And again, like it's just trying to be a healthier you so you can be in relationships that hopefully will be more successful and or have more of a chance of being successful because you've done the work that you've needed to do to resolve some of these things.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, people listening to this might, think a little bit differently now, and just be more mindful that, okay, they might have had a situation, where not everybody has, like you were saying, brought up in a home where if your parents might have loved you so much and been great parents, but they might have not had that. They might have not had
Exactly.
the mindfulness, so that you can't give what you don't already have. So now
Exactly.
you can be thinking like, okay, just having an open mind to say, it doesn't matter like what happened in the past. Now I'm mindful to this. Now I'm open and
Yes.
now I know I can create my life. I can create this is
Exactly.
the thing that we can take control of. Some things we can't in life, but these, like our personal relationships, we really can take control over them and just be different and kind of stopping the cycle with us, like letting it stop with
Exactly.
you.
And it brings up too, one of my good friends had said, like, even just stopping the generational curse, right?
Yes.
So sometimes it's like relationship after relationship you see way back when, it's like, oh, like, and some people even say it like, oh, like we've never had real good luck in terms of this family, in terms of relationships or finding the right guy or whatever. So, but it's like, no, you can stop that. Like, that's not something that you have to take as that's the way it's going to be. And well, this, like, my mom didn't know how to be in good relationships, so why would I expect anything different? It's like,
Right.
stop it. When you know better, you do better, right?
Yes.
So it's like, when you know better, you do better. So once you know better, again, utilize resources around you, and you do not have to accept anything as that's the given. You deserve anything and everything you potentially want in your life. And it's about, money. It's going to take work, but it again, it's one of those things. Do not just settle. Do not settle for that. This is the status quo, and this is what you'll take, and this is what you deserve. Because too often we see that, and unfortunately, now you are creating the next generation of kids that are seeing relationships that really are just not are not good. Are not good. They're dysfunctional. So
Right.
definitely. And that moves us on to number 4, which is know your
Yeah.
value. This is one that is really huge to me. And I feel like I think so many times, and I think on dating sites, and I've been on dating sites over the years in the past. And basically, it's one of those things that they always match you up based on like, oh, you're a Leo, they're a Leo. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that there is no, there is nothing to show that that's a match. You have kids, they have kids. Okay, that's great, but that's still it's probably not a match. But I think the biggest things that we don't often see are values. And I always say your value systems have to be aligned. That doesn't mean the person you're dating, they love to go fishing, you don't. That's not a value. That's like, okay, but the values are, you know, are your like basically I say like to think about your values. These are the things that are important to me. So these are this is the way you operate in your world. And the thing about it is like your value should be like family is important to me. Like I value my family. I value my traditions. I value maybe your top value is work and getting to, a top position. It's your value is education. I always say, so this is going to be your first like homework with us. Write down your five, top
Yes.
five values. The
Yes.
reason I say that is your values and someone else's values, it has to be within the top five. Their top values, your top values. And the reason I say this is if you say family is in your top five and it's not in their top five, they will never find what you think is important to be important. So, for example, if for me, it's very important for me to be around my family and accessible to my family if they need it. If I have to cancel with you on a date or potentially something comes up and I need to be there for my family, if you don't have any value for a family, you're not going to see the importance of that. And ultimately, it's probably going to end up fostering some conflict. Same thing, education is really important to me. I do not need someone to tell me, like, oh God, I can't believe you're wasting your time with school. It's like,
Right.
well, that is huge. So again, please write down your five top values, put them down, and those should probably be very solid things that are not going to change. We usually develop our values very early in life, the top five. And I have to say, if someone doesn't have at least 3 of those values on their top five, you really need to reassess.
I agree. And I have, as you're talking, experience hit my head really quick. So when we're talking about, our intimate relationships, it doesn't always have to be that they're, a negative thing about them. It really could just be because these values don't line up and you're just not compatible with each other. It could just be compatibility. They could be awesome people. You're awesome, they're awesome, but it's just you're not level, you're not, these values are not, leveling up and causes issues. So an experience that I had when I was dating somebody, they only, we both had kids, but he only saw his kids, once every other week because they kind of lived far away, and which is fine, and so once every other week, and then, just for like, the weekend, where I
Yes.
live with my kids, I have my kids all the time. So it's my kids. I'm the busy mother, I work, I have my house to run, I have my kids, they're in activities, and that's very important to me. So on my value, number one is my kids always come first. So with
Definitely.
me, I see a relationship as, okay, I might be able to see you, once during the week, like physically see you. We can talk every day, but once during the week, and then maybe one
Yes.
of the nights on the weekend, we can go out and spend some time. To me, that's perfect for my busy life. For him, he kind of wanted like every day, because he had all this time on his hands, and every day, every night, and on the weekends and stuff. And I was feeling suffocated, and he was feeling
Yes.
like neglected.
neglected.
So it's like we're not going to work. Like, and so in that case, it's like, you know what? You're not wrong for wanting what you want. I'm not wrong
Exactly.
for not being able to give it to you. So you need to find somebody that, which you can and will find somebody who has your schedule, and I need to find someone who can have a schedule more like mine and not need something every single day. So that's a really good example of just knowing your value, and just sometimes you're not compatible at the moment or at the
Yeah,
time.
exactly. And exactly. And I think the biggest thing is you don't want someone undermining your values because,
Right.
again, what's important to you and what you've established at that point is important, that should stay relevant in your life. So again, like, and maybe some of those things do change. Like I do think they're pretty much static, but like at the same time, there might be things that you might reorder your values. So say, a year and a half from now, I'm done with school. Not to say I'll always value education, but at the same time, that might be more of I'm able to put more time and energy into things. But again, I mean, you're a mom, you're always going to value your kids. That's always going to be a value that is near and dear to your heart. And I think the other thing too is I think a lot of people say what their values are. However, again, pay close attention to that's their actual values, because people say, oh yeah, family. Oh yeah, I value family. I value family. Well, if you hear someone in the background, you're on the phone and they're, yelling at their mom, they're being disrespectful, they're a grown person, they're saying, oh, they have all these conflicts with their family. Then, the other thing is also be open to the fact that what someone might be telling you, like they need to demonstrate that. Like what they're telling you may not exactly be consistent with their value system and what they're telling you. So again, be watchful, be mindful, be vigilant, because at the same time, once you start to see, like, again, if there's some discrepancy, the other thing is we also might categorize our values differently. I might say family is very important to me, and maybe you have to have more of a conversation. Family might be very important to me, but what I mean by that is family is important to me for me to see just for the holidays. But you're saying your family, meaning your kids, are the most important to you at this point because that's really going to be at the forefront. There are kids that have different needs at this point. You're very committed to being a mom. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, also maybe when people do list their values, that's also something that you want to have a conversation. What does that look like for you? What does that mean for you? Not just necessarily taking it at face value. So I think that's huge. But definitely knowing your values. So I would say the first bit of homework here, you're going to have one sheet that's later on going to go into an envelope. And this is the first topic. Know your values, write down 5 values on the list, and you're going to refer back to that time and time again.
Absolutely. And this little list and this activity will save you a lot of time and heartache going forward, because if you're in a situation and these are the core values, this isn't, like you said, this is the core stuff. So if you're starting
Yes,
to compromise that, or someone's trying to compromise their value just to stay in a relationship, that's where resentment comes in, that's where problems come in, and that's when eventually breakups happen and unhappiness happens. So you're really saving yourself, a lot of that energy, because if you have these values and they're not, the same as you, there's no need to waste anyone's time going forward. And it just
exactly.
is a lot of aggravation.
Exactly. And then that brings us to our next topic of number 5. What do you want? I think this is huge. This is, again, keep your piece of paper out. Number 5 is what do you want? What do you want in a relationship? Write down 3 things that you cannot steer from. So that's basically things that you're thinking in the future, you've resolved, you reflected, you've done all that, and you're now ready to go. What are the 3 things that you want? 1 to 3 that are just solid things that you cannot veer off of. These are things that you definitely cannot compromise on. It's something you feel like you need. What would you say, Val?
Yes, this is so, so, so important, because if you don't have this list and you don't have a good feel of what you want, sometimes or all the time, you will get, with me anyway, I will get into a situation and I will adore this person for, I want X, Y, and Z, and they have X and Y like on point. So I'll be like,
Yes.
well, maybe, I can go without Z, or maybe, within time they can, provide Z or whatever. Sometimes when you get emotionally involved, you do get a little, not as strong
Yep.
in yourself. And again, just like in the last thing we talked about, that's where resentment comes in and aggravation and frustration comes in, because you want somebody coming at you with these three things, or these few things that you really want, naturally coming at you like this. They're not doing this because you want them to. They're naturally this way, because then it's
Yes.
going to sustain going forward. And
Yep.
then you won't be without, in the relationship, because you know that they have these qualities that you're looking for. So this is so very important before you get emotionally involved with somebody, to kind of have this on hand and written down.
Exactly. And I think it's important, like you said, write these things down, put them in an envelope, because right before you're about to start dating, you want to have all these things. And again, as you're dating, you want to look at this often. Okay, maybe you've been on a couple dates. Has this person, okay, do you see that they might be able to have some of these things? So I would say, like, some examples of this, like, what do you want? I want someone that is going to be very caring. I need someone that is going to be consistent. So maybe you say, what does consistent mean? If they cancel more than 2 dates last minute, I'm done. I'm done. You don't go back. You don't justify. You don't say, oh, well, it's because this, and this. If that's important to you, you have the right to want what you want, and be very honest about what you want. And again, these are things, a lot of these things are for you. It's not necessarily when you go on the first date, you're bringing like a whole portfolio, a binder with you.
Because now you're crazy and
Yeah. Hi, I have a PowerPoint. I'm ready to go, and I want to make sure you are too. Some of these things, it is going to take some time. It's going to take
yeah,
conversations. This isn't meant to be, you figure out every single thing about this person, right up front. But again, you need to know this is more about reflecting what you want, what you need, in a way that makes sense. Again, it might be, again, you need someone that is affectionate. You need someone that, it could be, what I want is, it could be very concrete in the sense, I need somebody that I'm able to see 3 times a week. I need someone that's on the same work schedule. I need someone that's within 20 minutes away from me. I need someone that, doesn't work on weekends. I want something that, someone that's able and open to spend holidays together, or vacation or travel. I mean, those are all different examples of something that you want. And again, like, want someone that might be someone that you want that will compliment you, someone that you feel like, is someone that can align with you and your dreams. And it's nothing wrong with that. You want someone that's under the age of 50. You want someone over the age of 50. It could be something that simple. But again, I think sometimes don't let people tell you what you want. It's like, oh, well, that's not right. Or no, well, those are the things that you want, and that's, you think that's going to make you happy. Then definitely put them down. Put 1 through 3, put them down. But again, do not change those things during the course of a relationship to make it okay for that relationship to go forward. So this is almost like a contract to you. Your values and what do you want is part of a contract to you. So you are not accepting less than what you want and what you actually feel like you deserve.
right. And a good example of what we talked about, and then it kind of goes into this review and reflect back then, and when I had said previous, take the negatives and make it purposeful for your future. So this
Yes,
kind of goes to, like, one of my examples is communication. This is so important to me,
that's
because
huge.
I learned from a negative, right? So I didn't really have that on my, not that I didn't have it on my list, but it wasn't like a star next to it, because I never
Yep.
really had a situation where communication was so awful until I was with someone else. And
Until it
so,
was very awful.
I took
Yes.
that terrible, terrible experience and I was like, oh, this is something that I need for my future. So I reflected, I
Yes.
reviewed, I made it part of my list. And so, like, when you said on the first date, you're not bringing this portfolio, it takes time with communication. This is something that's going to take time, because for me,
Yes.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
take, I want to see how, everybody's, kind of great in the beginning, right? But then it's like, I
Yes.
want to see how this person is when we have a disagreement. I want to see how this person communicates when there's a disagreement, or if they're upset about something.
Absolutely.
Are they going to be respectful to me? So before I can take anybody seriously, that's one of the things on my list because of an experience that I had. Again, it's not baggage that I'm bringing. It's lessons, like going forward. It's
Yes.
very important for me to be able to be with somebody where we can communicate respectfully, maturely. We can both be accountable and we can both come,
Yes.
to a conclusion, whether we agree to disagree or whatever, that it's that both people's viewpoints are being valued. These are the things, this is very, very important to me because of a situation. But that
Yes.
is something that's going to take time because you have to get to a point where
Hmm.
I guess it would be, as you start spending more time together where something like this would happen. So that's an example of just and that is not going to change on my list. That's like
No,
a
it's not.
definite.
And again, like having someone that's emotionally available. I mean, granted, no one's going to be telling you every single thing or showing you every single thing on a
Right.
first date. However, when the going gets tough and you need something or you're feeling like, okay, we're getting deeper into this relationship, it's time to, really express how we feel and is this person in touch with their feelings? Are they someone that can, be there for you emotionally? And again, if once you're seeing that this person is not that, then you really do need to go to your list and sort of say to yourself, okay, again, this person might be a great person. This might have maybe been able to work at some other time, but
Exactly.
but this isn't for me. And that's
Right.
okay. That's okay. And you can say it just as that. I think people get caught with a breakup. It needs to be something like huge that happens. It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't have to. It sometimes can just say, you know what? I had a nice, like, this was nice. I appreciate the opportunity getting to know you, getting to meet you. However, I'm looking for something else. And
Yeah.
that's okay. I'm not trying to change you. I don't want to change you. And certainly you are free to, do whatever you want in terms of and want whatever you want. But again, it needs to be a contract that you are committing to yourself in that way. And
Absolutely.
that definitely moves us along to the opposite of this, which is number 6. And what do you not? What do you not want? Meaning, what are some of the things that are absolute deal breakers? And I have to say, I mean, again, it's like I have to say there are certain things for me that if this happens or you present in this way, it will be an absolute deal breaker. And again, Val, I think like you had even mentioned in the past, it's like you have certain experiences and then you think, oh, well, this X and Y, they're really consistent, they're great at communication, and something happens and you're like, oh, well, no. Stop right there. This is something you said you would never tolerate. And it could be something as serious as domestic violence, abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism. It could be something as much as like, if the person said, you have dogs and they're like, I hate pets. And,
Right.
something like that. It's like, okay, well, I have 2 cats. I'm a mom. I'm a mom of 2 rescue cats. Like, if you hate pets and you're gonna like, I see you like treating my cats wrong, like that's not gonna be tolerated. Treat my
Nope.
son wrong, that's not gonna be tolerated. Treating my family wrong, that's not gonna be tolerated. So I think really coming up with a list like this is also huge. So this is again, add this to your paper. You have your 5 values. You have your 3, what do you want? What do you absolutely need? And then under this is, what do you not? What will you not tolerate under any circumstances? You're not going to go back and say, well, this was different. No, no, no. It's like, this is an absolute deal breaker.
I agree 100% because again, you are saving yourself a lot of heartache, getting close and close and putting your heart out there and being vulnerable to someone and knowing that this is something that you don't want. Eventually, you're going to get so upset. That's where friction and breakups happen and problems happen.
Yes.
And then, this person, you want this person to change. You
Yes.
don't, and that's the thing. We have to stop expecting people to change their ways or for people to
Absolutely.
want us to change our ways. This is why
Yep.
this doing these steps kind of you can't avoid everything, but it avoids a lot. It
Yeah.
avoids a lot of disappointments.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, what you don't want is okay. Like I think sometimes people are like, oh, but I'm different. Like, you might decide, I don't want someone that's been married before. I don't want someone that's been divorced before. I don't want somebody that has young kids. That's okay. That's okay. You're kidding yourself to think that if you let this go for the next 6 months, that things will resolve itself. No, you're now more emotionally into it. It's going to be harder to get out and maybe even potentially a bigger blow up in the end. So, like
Yeah.
you're saying, once
Yeah.
there's friction, and then all of a sudden, that's when you see these huge breakups where it's like, you didn't mention any of this. You like, and then you're all like, oh my God, you did this. And the person's like, I had no idea. Like, and it's like, well, again, it's like you are entitled to not wanting what you don't want. It's okay. And not feeling guilty about that. And, it's like, and just as much as someone else is entitled to not wanting what they want, not tolerating what they don't want to tolerate. So I think this is another one that's huge. It's okay to put a list together of things that are absolute deal breakers. I would say three of them. And again, look at this at the beginning of the relationship, say 2 months in, but almost like you would do like, and definitely if you're in one year in, the 1 year point is huge. I say 6 months, 1 year, even if you just do things quarterly, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And then, or if you're feeling like, I'm not feeling completely right about this, go back to that list. Definitely I always say
Your
100%
intuition.
listen to your intuition above anything else, but go back to that list, revisit that list. Again, you might just be realizing, you're right, there's something here that's just not right. And actually, I can pinpoint it from this list. This is something I feel like it might not exactly be this, but it's part of this, and I'm not okay with it. And again, you're doing yourself such a good such a service, and again, you're not wasting your time. And this
Right.
doesn't take a lot to do. If this takes you 5 minutes to do, great. This might take you a couple weeks to really think of. But
Right.
be reflective of yourself and know that you're worth this time and energy.
Right. Absolutely.
So our next one is 7. Fear not. So do you want us to talk about this, Val?
No,
Kick us off here.
sometimes we live in fear, and that's what prevents us from going forward. That's what prevents us from making these tough decisions of letting go of situations that could be toxic to us, or something that, isn't right for us. And we do sometimes we don't even realize we're doing this, or we feel this way. This is another thing of this is why being mindful and taking these moments every day is so important, because sometimes we don't even realize we live day to day, and we're really living in fear, and we're letting it prevent us from moving forward. So some of the things, examples of living in fear is like, well, that kind of keeps us in a situation as well. I'm going to stay with them because I have two kids, and they
Hmm.
accept my kids, or I'm older now, and I'm in my 40s, so who's going to
Yep.
want me when I'm older? These are things that I've heard, from people, my friends, and people that have been around me. And,
Yes.
I've lived in fear for certain things. We all kind of have our fears, but you really have to like stop yourself when you're saying these things and being like, whoa, 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 like, I cannot live like this, because this is how you get into situations that are not good for you. This is how you let things slide. And this is how, when you let your standards down, when you're
Hmm.
living in fear. And you have to, really come to a place where somebody coming into your life, we kind of have to evaluate, what does it mean to have a companion in our life, a friend,
Yeah.
a partner, or whatever, to spend time with somebody, to be
Hmm.
vulnerable with somebody, to have somebody close in our lives. It's to enhance our life, not to make our life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
So we have to kind of like get back to that idea, like, wait a minute, like, you should never have to tolerate or live in fear, because they're supposed to only be, enhancing your life. So if you're saying things to yourself out loud, or in your head, or you're hearing other people say things, like fearful things that are keeping them trapped in situations, or settling for less, or putting their standards down, throwing these lists away that we're telling you or editing these lists that we're telling you
Yep.
to write, it's because of your fear. You're letting the fear get the best of you. So your
There.
why
Yes.
has to be bigger than your fear, you know? So why do I want a relationship? What
Mm-hmm.
do I want from it? Which is this list, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that has to be bigger than our fear. So when fear does come into our minds, because we are humans, we need to, stop, really stop and acknowledge, like, okay, I'm being fearful right now. I'm being negative right now. I'm saying what I don't, I'm afraid of this or I'm afraid of that. I have to stop that,
Mm-hmm.
and I make my life up. I'm the one who creates my life and creates my happiness. And
Yes.
then this is why you revisit those lists.
Exactly. No, that's definitely very well said because again, it's like fear not. Do not make your decision based on fear. And unfortunately, if you know that you're afraid of that, chances are the person that you're with also knows that you're afraid of those things. So again, probably potentially thinking like, okay, well, I know she's not going to leave because she's afraid that I'll take the kids or she's afraid that I will move on. I mean, and I think sometimes too, sometimes we also stay in relationships because we're also afraid of not even what our possibilities are, but also the possibilities of that person. If you're holding on to someone because you're afraid that their life is going to be so enhanced or so much better without you, then let them go. It's like, this isn't, you should not feel like you're in competition with anybody else in the sense that, again, if you know your own worth and you know your own value, you're not going to be wanting to make decisions out of fear to keep someone or keep yourself in a situation truly you no longer belong in. And sometimes it's like, I do believe everyone we meet, every interaction we have does serve a purpose, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. It's a learning experience, like we said before. And it's okay to know that, maybe this was good at that time. Maybe you didn't know better at that time. But it's okay to say, you know what? Again, now I know. I'm no longer tolerating this. This is the end of this. It's served its purpose. It's gone the direction. It's gone as far as it can go. And at this point, yeah, it is scary. Change is scary. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. But at the same time, know that you are what is waiting for you is so much better than potentially staying in something that is just not something you actually want long term. And I also think sometimes too, this is also one of those things that it's like, if you are feeling like you would never tell anybody else to be in this situation, then you should not be in this
Yes,
situation. Like, it's like,
absolutely.
don't do it. Don't do it. So definitely do not
I
make decisions out of fear.
Yes, and I'm glad that you said that because I recently told a friend about that recently, and I said to her, how would you feel? Like, what advice would you give if this was your daughter in this situation? Oh, well, no, I would say blah 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 blah. Well, then why are you
Yes,
accepting less for yourself? Why are you not
exactly.
going hard for yourself?
Exactly.
If I was in the situation, you would tell me, no, you need to leave. You would tell me all these things, but why are you not, loving yourself enough to get yourself out of this situation? What's stopping you? You really have to get deep sometimes and see, like, what is
Yes.
stopping me?
Yes.
What is fear? What am I afraid of? It's so important. I'm glad that you mentioned that,
Yeah,
earlier
no,
because
definitely. And
yeah.
that definitely naturally brings us to our next one, which is again, be your own best example. So, like what you were just saying, Val, again, it crosses right over because the thing about it is, be your own best example. So many people, your kids are watching you. You might have a niece, a nephew, friends of yours that they might think the world of you in so many ways, but be your own best example. And I think of that in the sense that I don't have a daughter, but I have a son. My son is 21 years old, and I want him to know at the end of the day of how to treat a woman and also how he should respect himself. So if I'm letting somebody treat me any which way, he's going to get the messaging that maybe that's okay, maybe that's what women want, maybe that's what he decides he wants. But at the same time, think of it, be your own best example. I've had to make some tough decisions when it comes to relationships, but at the end of the day, I can hold my head up high and say, no, I'm not tolerating that. I deserve more. I respect myself. I value myself. And unfortunately, you're not able to make the cut. I mean, it's like, and again, it's like, but you know what? At the end of the day, it can be hurtful. You can miss that person. But I'm also proud of the fact that I know I deserve more. I'm going to be an example. If I saw, like, if this was my younger self, or if I saw a younger girl, that I could say with pride and very unapologetically, like, I am doing what's in my best interest and what I think I deserve.
Yes. And don't you feel as though, can't you, I think everybody can look back and think of a tough decision that they made and felt like it was at the time, oh, like unbearable, right? And we're not
Yes.
even thinking of that anymore. We're not, like, that has
Oh
passed.
yeah,
Like,
we'd be like,
you
oh
know, like
geez.
I can think of so many situations where I thought this is like the end, this is terrible and I'm never gonna love again and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And guess what? I did, and you will, and you'll get over it, and you won't even be thinking of this situation anymore. So you have
exactly.
to remind yourself in those tough times that, you know what, this isn't gonna last forever. This uncomfortableness, this hard decision, or this situation, it's not going to last forever. As long as I stop it now and move on, I'm only
Yes,
going to be empowered, and I'm only going to be
exactly.
stronger for the next time. And like you said, be your best example, because people are watching you. Your friends are watching
Yes,
you, and your kids are watching you, or your family's watching you. And you know what, not for nothing, but when I see people who are making tough decisions and they're getting through it, it
yes,
motivates me. And I'm like,
exactly.
you know what? And I actually love being around people like that, because I'm like, if they can do it, I can. You don't even know how you're helping other people as well when you're making
Exactly.
these big decisions.
Exactly. That is definitely huge. Our next one, number 9, is before you look outside, start from within. I think this is also a really big one because, again, I think sometimes as we have these lists, so again, go back to your list. What you want, what you need, what you don't want, what you don't like, what are deal breakers, things you will not tolerate in a relationship. If something on that list is something that, so number one, if you have something on that list right now on the top 3 things that you actually are asking for, or you can't tolerate, that you are not able to do yourself, go back. Go back. Do not, you are not ready to move on and move on at this point. So many people are looking for things outside themselves and want things in themselves. Like, okay, I want a guy that drives a Mercedes. You do. Okay, do you drive a Mercedes?
Right.
Oh, I can't afford that. Okay, well then do not be looking for things. Do not be looking for things. You want someone that's communicative. You want somebody that is able to go out on Saturdays, but yet you don't even have a babysitter lined up. The whole thing of it is you better be able to put your money where your mouth is, in the sense that do not be looking for something in someone else that you are not able to give or do yourself. And that is probably one of the most selfish things that people do. They're willing to take, they're willing to withdraw, they're willing to utilize someone else's resources. However, they're not willing to reciprocate. And if anything on your list is you have a deal breaker, but that's something you do all the time, like, oh, I can't stand someone running late. But guess what? You're an hour late and you're a hot mess. Do not, do not put that, take that,
That's
not
not
even
on my
take it
list because
offense.
I'm late.
Yeah, no, exactly. I wouldn't put that either. I can be someone that's, I'm probably going to be a couple minutes late. However, the whole thing is, but I'm going to communicate with you. Hi, I'm 5 minutes late. Hi,
Right.
I'm 10 minutes late. I'm not
Right.
someone that's just not going to show up and be like, oh my gosh. So
Right.
I think that's the thing. Do not expect something outside, externally, from someone else that you don't have within you. If you're looking for empathy, compassion, and you're someone that doesn't know how to give that at all yourself, shame on you for asking and looking for that. Go back, reassess yourself, reflect, resolve, get help, do whatever you need to do. But do not do that. I think that's huge for me. Like, do not ask for something that you are not able to do yourself.
I totally agree with you. And to be honest, you're putting your happiness in someone else's hands, which is dangerous to begin with, right? Because, like I
Absolutely.
said, you have to come to a place where you're giving yourself all of these things first.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And then you're looking to somebody to enhance your life. So if you're trying to have somebody fill a void, or to fill
Yes.
something that you're, whether it's emotional or something like a materialistic void or something like that, like you said about the Mercedes, that's, first of all, it's unfair to the person, but it's also like
Yes.
it's definitely going to fail. Like that's going to fail because people change, things change, situations change. You can't expect somebody to fill it. You have to fill these voids. You have to come and make your life first, and then you go
Yes.
out. And the other thing is, like, we have to be really honest about ourselves. Relationships are give and take. Nobody wants to be with somebody where they're, giving, 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 and
Yeah.
the other
They're a
person.
leech. It's like a
Exactly.
leech. Yeah.
Exactly. That gets old very, very quick. So I love this one because you really have to be, you know, honest, and you have to, like you said about running late. I'll never say that because I'm always late. I know that's my downfall and I work at it,
Yep.
but like you said, communication about it and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
absolutely, if you have a fault and you're asking somebody, you're not being fair at all. And that's
No.
gonna that's not you're not gonna get a positive result long term.
No, and especially because it's like that's very confusing. And again, you're somebody that you're not taking the time to develop yourself, and the person's going to realize that very early on. I think so
Oh
many
yeah,
times people think you're tricking someone. You're not. You're not. And even if you are for a little bit, it's not going to be forever. It's not going to be long lasting, and you're wasting that person's time and your time. So again, be honest because this is just crazy. If you do all this and you're trying to, I think a lot of people do or say what they want the ideal to be. And I always say, if you're doing that and that's not the person you are, then you have some work to do.
yeah,
Instead of trying to deceive people, turn into that person. Do the work to be that person that you want to be rather than being like, oh, yeah, I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. It's like, no, you don't do all that. And, I think, it just cracks me up. It's like, be about it. Be about
yeah,
it. Do something about it. If you say you're going to do something, be something. You'll be a better person because you put the work in.
right,
And I think that's the thing. And I think the thing too is it's like again, it's all about being honest because none of us have to like this isn't just based on okay, I want to date and I want to date long term. If you want somebody that say you decide on your list of things that that something you want from someone is just someone that you can talk to and have a coffee with on a Sunday morning, go to breakfast with, maybe take a walk with, and that's all you're looking for, that's okay. It doesn't have to always be a long-term relationship. It could be someone that's just checking on you. You want someone that says, hey, did you get home okay? I mean, that's okay. But be honest about it and do not look for something that you feel like number one, you cannot fulfill. Number two, it's not going to be sustainable because you are really putting on a facade that once someone finds out they're really it's not going to be good. It's not going to
yeah,
be good.
right.
Definitely.
And that's, like we're looking for, healthy, happy situations, and
Yes.
honesty is one of them. And it's eventually going to come out in the end, and it's going to cause drama, and it's going to cause issues, and it's going to be an ugly situation. And we don't have time for that in our lives. We have to be
No.
honest. And like you said, it's never like when you said about, what you want, it's never a bad thing what you want. It's about being honest.
Exactly.
Somebody had told me something when I was on a date with them about what they were looking for, and it was definitely something that I wasn't looking for. And
Yeah.
I was really appreciative because he knew it, like he knew the kind of person I was,
Yes.
but he told me anyway. And honestly, I have nothing but respect for people who are honest because thank you for not wasting my time or leading me on a
Yes.
road that would have
Yes.
been ugly anyway. And thank you for being honest, like your character, and it shows your character too. You can't.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think, you know what? There's so many people out there that if you're honest about what you want, you will find someone that equally wants that. Like I've had a situation where someone was smoking cigarettes. It was like, I'm sorry, I have asthma. I'm not into cigarette smoking in terms of someone I'm dating. But there are so many other people that are okay with you smoking cigarettes. Don't lie about it. I
Right.
found out and very early on, like second date, and like ran off. Like I was like, goodbye. And he was like, wait, where are you going? I'm like, I caught you smoking a cigarette. It's like, but it was one of those things. It's like, again, don't lie. It's like, because now, you know what? That's basically one thing, but basically you're already, if you're going to do that and very early on, you're setting yourself up. And the expectation is that I would only think you're going to lie in the future and about things that will probably be even more serious than that. So again, definitely before you look outside, start with from within.
Hmm.
Last but not least, we have don't rush.
Yes.
This is a process that's 1 through 10. Like I said, these are our 10 commandments before you start dating and to really just improve yourself. Love Thyself is obviously the name of this specific podcast in the Meetup with MeLa relationship series. And basically, don't rush. Do not rush through this. If you feel like you're at number 5, 6, maybe 4, 5, 6, you're trying to figure out your values, you've never really thought about this. 5, you don't know what you want. You've just recently come out of something. 6, you don't really know what your deal breakers are. Do not rush. This doesn't need
No.
to be a 1 day process that you go from 1 to 10 or 0 to 100, as they say. It's like take your time and use this as a guide for self discovery, self reflection. Go at your own rate. I think so many times too, people have even lost. I've heard of people losing a spouse or losing a partner, and they're like, "Oh, when are you going to start dating again?" This is your timeline.
Right.
Do not
Absolutely.
compare against, oh, well, you've been divorced now for a couple, a year. Are you going to start dating? Or you've been broken up or you've done this. This is your timeline. You need to set the tone and you need to set the tone honestly with yourself.
I completely agree with you. Everybody's timeline is different. Everybody's life is different. And don't get caught up because this kind of ties into fear,
Yes.
you know, is don't get caught up in what others are saying or what outside influences are saying or how you feel like, well, this one moved on quick after this, or this one's, broke up, you know, 5 months and they're already in a really great relationship and I'm still single. Like, don't get caught up in what everybody's on their own journey, right?
Yes.
And what you need to focus on is what's healthy for you. You need to make sure that you're making all of these
Exactly.
steps that we talked about and you're confident and you're comfortable with them all, because you don't want us to go and jump into a situation again that's another short term, you know, disappointment situation. You want to make sure that you're completely ready. And it does not
Yes.
matter how long it takes you to get to this point, because every day if you're working every day on yourself and your mind
Yes.
every day, you're perfect. You are right where you need to be at that moment in your life.
Exactly.
And let me tell you, when you are on your own self
Hmm.
and you are mindful and you are taking your time and you are going through these steps, great things start to happen to you. You
Hmm.
don't have to chase things. The best things come to those, I'm not going to say who wait, but the best things in life, they do take time, so you never ever want to, rush through these steps just to get into another situation. And if you feel like you have to rush, then there's a void in there that you need to fix. That's just like another indicator, like, oh, there's something I need to fix inside of me where I feel like I need to get out, like I need to not, I need to get out there like right now because I'm feeling a
Yes.
certain type of way.
Exactly. I think that's definitely true. And I think like values certainly hit all the points because I think again, it's like rushing and feeling like you're, oh gosh, I better hurry, so and so is doing this. It's like again, you're comparing yourself in a way that it's just not fair. There's nothing productive about that. And again, like you rush into something and look what happens. It's not anything that's going to be long lasting, healthy, anything that you necessarily wanted from the beginning. So I definitely think that is definitely huge. So I definitely want to let you guys know. Thank you so much for tuning in to Love Thyself, the 10 Commandments before getting into a relationship. This is part of, again, the Meetup with MeLa podcast relationship series that will be featured throughout the month of February. Val has been my amazing guest host, which I'm so excited to invite her back. The next one that we've actually created as well, we have a big one on dating 101. So basically, it's just once you've done all these things and you're ready to date, some of the things that you want to really consider as you enter the dating field. So we're so excited that we were able to have these conversations today. I hope it's conversations that everyone can relate to, whether you're even in a relationship right now. Again, maybe do these things and maybe, work through some of these things, keeping in mind that you are in a relationship, but you certainly owe it to yourself. So any last thoughts on your end, Val?
No, first of all, thank you so much for having me on here. It really, I'm so
Oh,
excited
thank
and
you.
I'm so honored to be on
Oh,
here. I
please.
love
No,
everything
thank
that
you
you're
so
doing with
much.
this podcast. I love how you're, reaching so many people, and I think it's so awesome what you're doing. So I applaud
Thank
you for
you.
that.
And you're an amazing
And
person,
I
so that's why
honestly,
I
I love to be
definitely
a
reached
part of
out.
this. But, before we go, I just want to say to everybody, please just know that you are worth anything that you can imagine that you want in your life. Don't ever say, oh, I wish. If you stop and say, I wish I was in a situation like that, or I wish this for myself, you can create
Yes.
your life. You can get there. Every single person, we're all unique. We all have awesome qualities within ourselves. We
Hmm.
all have things that, we're tuning up and we're growing into the person we are and we're leveling up every day. And
Yes.
don't be sad or disappointing if you're not where you want to be right now in your life. You can create it and it takes time, but you will get there. Be patient. Just put in the work every day and never settle for anything less. And always try to just be the best version of yourself. And, great situations and great relationships will happen for you.
Definitely. And thank you again so much. You can watch our Meetup with MeLa podcast. It's available on Spotify, YouTube, and many other platforms. Please stay posted. And thanks so much, guys. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye, everybody.